So, somewhat surprisingly, Christmas is full of monsters and ghosts. In the Victorian times, it was actually a tradition to gather at Christmas Eve and tell ghost stories. And all around the world, Christmas has loads of stories about creatures and spirits and demons and really scary, weird things with goat legs. So we're going to start with Krampus, which is one of the better known Christmas devils or Christmas creatures, depending on your perspective. So December 5th is the night of Krampus, and December 6th is the feast of St. Nicholas. Krampus means the claw, and he's really popular in the Alps in Germany, or he was, actually. He was banned at one point because he was too scary. He has furry legs and goat feet and a really long tongue and usually goat horns, and he basically punishes evil children. He runs around looking for them and puts them in his sack and steals them, or he beats them with willow twigs. There's also Perchta, who is essentially a maiden or a hag. She's known as both. It's thought that she was originally a goddess of nature or the forest, and she got turned into sort of a witch figure who travels, again, around Christmas time, and leaves coins in the shoes of children that have behaved well, and she, again, punishes the children that are naughty. I think you're sensing a theme here, right? If the children have been naughty, the way that she punishes them is by slitting open their stomachs and pulling all their guts out and replacing it with straw and rocks. Merry Christmas? I don't know what that's about. Maybe that's just like a symbol for hunger and starvation, or it's just really weird and I kind of dig it. Perchta also had an entourage of men known as the Pertin, and they would accompany her wearing masks, again with horns, sometimes scary, usually animal masks. But interestingly enough, in the 16th century, they became their own thing, and they would go house to house and scare away bad spirits and bring good luck to the house. Okay, more Christmas monsters! In Germany, there's also Knecht Ruprecht, and I know I'm pronouncing that wrong, so I'm sorry. He's also known as Rupert. Rupert has a long brown cloak and a long beard and a staff, and he runs around going from house to house, meeting the children around Christmas time. And if the children are polite and well-behaved, he gives them gingerbread. And if they're not polite, if they're naughty, he punishes them by beating them with a bag of ashes. Merry Christmas! In Sweden and Finland, there's Nutti Pukki. Nutty Pucky. Nutti Pukki? I don't know how to pronounce that, I'm very sorry. He also has horns, and he carries birch switches and has a leather or fur mask in the shape of an animal. He essentially goes from house to house demanding food and alcohol, which actually is fairly common in Christmas traditions. There's not a lot of asking please for all the punishing of naughty children. It's a lot of creatures that go house to house and demand food and alcohol. So Iceland is known for some pretty awesome Christmas and Yule traditions. There's the Grilla, who is a lady ogre who eats children. Because, you know, you get hungry. She has 3 heads and ice blue eyes on the back of each of those heads, as one does. Her fingernails are really long into talons, and she has goat horns, because goats apparently are very popular at Christmas time. She became popular around the 17th century, and her children are known as the Yule Lads, and there's 13 of them, and they are really weird. They're awesome. Also in Iceland, the Yule Cat, who eats naughty children. Once again, if you're a child at Christmas time, be afraid. To be fair, the Yule Cat only eats lazy children, so if you don't have any new clothes at Yule time, it's proof that you weren't working hard enough during the year to make something new for yourself, and therefore you're lazy, and therefore clearly you must be eaten. In Italy, La Befana is a witch who travels on January 5th, that's her feast day. She rides around on her broomstick and brings treats to good children, and again punishes naughty children. She fills the stockings of good children with treats and uses coal for those who've been naughty. In Alsace and Lorraine, we also have Hans Trapp, who was a greedy man who was excommunicated from the Catholic Church, and he was banished to the forest where he dressed up like a scarecrow and tried to steal children to eat them, because yum. There's also Pierre Fouettard in France, who was a butcher who tried to lure children into his shop in order to cook them and eat them. St. Nicholas actually resurrected them and punished him by turning him into a servant. So Pierre Fouettard travels around with St. Nicholas punishing evil children, which doesn't actually sound like much of a punishment for him, since he clearly doesn't like children, since he wants to eat them. One of my favorite Christmas traditions actually takes place in South Wales, and it's called the Mari Lwyd. The Mari Lwyd is a horse skull that's put on a stick, and she's wearing a white cape, and she's covered in bells and ribbons, and she's carried around town door to door, usually Christmas Eve or New Year's, and she demands entrance into your home. She wants to get in there, and she wants to eat your food and drink your drink. Essentially, a battle occurs with the homeowner, and it's a battle of rhyme and poetry. And that's how you decide whether or not the Mari Lwyd gets into your house and gets fed. Anne Boleyn is actually also associated with Christmas. So King Henry VIII, her husband, chopped her head off in 1536, accusing her of witchcraft and adultery because he's a big fat head chopping baby and he wanted male sons. Also, he's just a jerk. Anyway, so he chopped off her head, and apparently she returns to Hever Castle as a spirit on Christmas Day. I think she also apparently visits the Tower of London, probably because she's kind of cranky because he chopped her head off. There's also the White Lady of Cornwall, who appears in white mist on Christmas Eve. In a village in Calcutta and Wiltshire as well, instead of a white lady or instead of a ghost or a creature, it's a whole bunch of little white pigs with red ears, which is kind of awesome. Yule, winter solstice, Christmas, a time of family and feasting and Christmas trees and goats and cannibals. Happy holidays!